Hey everybody, welcome to the Face-to-Face Ministries podcast, the #1 resource for learning what it means to have a healed heart, connect more deeply with Jesus, and experience true and lasting transformation in your life. I'm one of your hosts, Kathy Little.
And I'm your other host, Melinda Wilson. Please hit subscribe so you don't miss the fresh content we're continuing to release. And while you're at it, we greatly appreciate your help in getting the word out by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a quick review. You can also keep up with us by following our social media by searching face-to-faceministries.org on Facebook. That's no spaces, no numbers, and no caps. And on Instagram at face-to-face-min, and that's all one word.
We want to invite you to join us in our free Face-to-Face Heart Healing Network and in our premium network. Be part of a growing community of people just like you who are wanting to dive deeper into what it means to access the full benefits package of the cross and learning how to help others do the same.
Our team also offers one-on-one ministry sessions that can be done virtually, and you can also learn how to help others connect with Jesus and find healing in their lives through training we offer in the ministry model we use. And for more information about all of the resources, trainings, and events that we offer, visit face-to-faceministries.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter.
All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Or for the first time.
Yes, thank you for listening, regardless of if this is your 190th time or your first time. Which, speaking of, how many downloads are we at
man,
now?
we are way over 200,000 downloads now. I think in the last episode I mentioned that this was going to happen very soon, and it did, like the day after the last episode posted. So we're well over 200,000 now. We are on our way to
a million.
Well, yes.
No. We're not on our way to 300. We're on our way to 1 million. There just happens to be some other milestone numbers along the way.
This is true.
This is true. 1 million.
But that's thanks to you guys, our listeners. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast, for subscribing to the podcast, reviewing the podcast.
Sharing it.
Yeah, sharing it. I said sharing it.
Oh. Well, maybe they needed to have that little positive reinforcement.
A double share.
Share.
Yeah, because I do hear there are folks that reach out to us and they're like, I found you through the podcast. I've been sharing your podcast with everyone. I've been binge listening to your podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. You are the ones that are helping us get over those download hurdles as we go to 1 million. And the bottom line is we're getting the word out about inner healing and what it means to fully embrace all of what Jesus offers and makes available to us. So we're very, very thankful to you, our listeners. And we have a really special episode today. I know there's some stuff we want to tell you about that's coming up, but I'm really honored that we are interviewing again our mentor, Dr. Karl Lehman, who's the founder of the Immanuel Approach. And that is our model, although we very much honor all of the models. And if you listen to season 1, you're going to get a taste of tons of different models of inner healing. And we are in relationship with these leaders and founders of these models. But we do have one that we've settled on as our favorite, and it is the Immanuel Approach.
Because, too, I was just interviewed for a podcast yesterday, and we started out saying this is an inner healing model, but it is, I feel like that's just a small part of it. It is really a lifestyle of awareness of God's presence with us.
Well, one of the things we talk about with Dr. Karl is about how with the Immanuel Approach, inner healing is just one item on the buffet. He calls it one item on the buffet.
It's a byproduct.
Yeah. It is about having that intimacy with Jesus, connection with Jesus. And, out of that, there's spiritual formation. You can have discernment. You can process things with Jesus when you learn to have that interactive connection. So inner healing is really one piece, one thing on the buffet. I loved how he said that because it's really true, which is why we need to get some different language for these Immanuel Approach trainings. Because when we say that, probably you as the listener are thinking, well, this is something I'm going to be trained in to do, but I don't want to really do that, or I don't really want to facilitate. But these tools are for you. This is about your spiritual walk. This is what discipleship looks like. And we actually talk about that with Dr. Karl. There's so many beautiful nuggets in this interview, and it's in 2 parts. We actually talked to him for an hour and a half. And so there's 2 parts. In part 1, we're talking about the Immanuel Approach and the piece of that in the bigger picture with inner healing and counseling and all the different beautiful byproducts. And in part 2, there's some really great stuff going on with InterVarsity that has been amazing. And we're going to get to hear more about what God's doing there.
So when I think of discipleship, as you mentioned, a lot of people have, well, we do Bible study, we do small groups, we get mentored. The thing is, when Jesus called his disciples to follow him, it was about following him, watching what he did.
Exactly.
That's what discipleship is. It's not a formal, let's sit down and do this. It is watching how Jesus does things, what he does, how he responds, what he says. And that's how the discipleship learned.
Yeah.
And he taught them, yes, but it was really about following in his footsteps and seeing what he did so that we could do greater things than he did, as he said. And so in Immanuel Approach, as we will hear, the mirror neuron issue, I don't know if it's an issue, but the mirror neuron fact of brain science is we watch what Jesus does when we help someone connect with Jesus. That's how we learn how to become like him, by watching what he does, hearing what he says. That is, I believe, the ideal model of discipleship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to get more into that actually at the very end of the interview of part 2, which you'll hear in a couple of weeks. Dr. Karl goes into more detail about those mirror neurons. And we want to get right into that interview. But before we do, we want to let you know just a couple of things. One, if y'all are interested in praying for us, we've got Moravian Falls, our Dashaway number 37 is happening the 2nd to the 4th of June, which is just a few days after the release of this.
It's actually been at capacity for a while.
Well, it opened up a room and it filled up again. So, but you have an opportunity, ladies, to join us at Lake Tahoe, celebrate with us our 10-year anniversary at Lake Tahoe. And that has 8 spots left open. That is July 14 to 16. So please go to our website, click on the tab that says Dashaway, or you can go to dashawayweekends.com. We'd love to have you join us there. It's really, you can't really explain all of the beauty of what happens at a Dashaway until you participate, but it is life-changing and transformational. We're very, very excited about these 2 coming up and celebrating.
And I feel like there's someone, at least someone out there that feels a stirring and you're thinking or feeling, oh my gosh, they said it again. There's something about that, but you're not sure, or maybe you're not sure about the finances, or you're not sure about the whatever. Do it.
Yes.
Do it.
You can make payments. There's actually 4 monthly payments if you use the PayPal option with no interest. You guys can totally do payments. And you just click on the PayPal option and it gives you an opportunity to do 4 equal monthly payments with no interest. So it's not as big of a chunk. But man, y'all need to come, ladies. It's going to be amazing. We're very excited about it. We only have 8 spots left. So I believe one of them has your name on it. And
the experience is waiting for you.
Yes. But we got to get right into this conversation with Dr. Karl. It's amazing, beautiful, wonderful. And this is only part 1. We're just going to whet your appetite for part 2 coming up. And we do love Karl. He is a friend and a mentor to us. And we're excited to have you get to meet him. If you want the original interview, it's episodes 13 and 14. You get to hear him explain the model in detail. But this is some follow-up and it's beautiful.
We're excited to be with you in this journey, my friends. Thank you again for listening, and enjoy and appreciate. And I bless you to receive all that God has for you through this episode, this interview with Dr. Karl.
Yes. Yeah. So we heard the interview with Tony, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on with the Immanuel Approach. And since that is our favorite, because it's the one that we're called to train and teach on, I think it would be fun for everybody to have an opportunity to hear what God is doing and opening the doors. Because one of the things that I personally love about the Immanuel Approach is because it's so easily transferable.
Yep.
And yet it's built in with the safety. I kind of feel like what we're doing is putting extraordinary tools into the hands of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And it's pretty awesome.
And I gotta say, without giving away any, we have Dr. Karl Lehman here, so it's not just Kathy and I, but just for your sake, Dr. Karl, or I don't know, mine or someone's. And again, it's not, and I made this very clear. We just finished these 2 trainings back to back in gorgeous, we could call it Idaho, and they call it Wyoming, Idaho, where there's actually signs because it's right on the border. But and we got to go to Grand Teton and Yellowstone. And I totally thought of you, Dr. Karl, having been a park ranger. And I know you could have told me every tree and shrub and bird and creature, which would have been so much fun. But one thing that I was sharing with someone that I just found out, she came to the second training and is working with a large mission agency, which everyone would have heard of if I said it, but they're using a different model, and which is wonderful that they're using healing in a mission training, but it's very lengthy sessions, and it is very hard to get trained in. And this was just, she was saying this. I'm not going to say the name of it because we love and honor all of them, but it's very hard to get really experienced in, and it's very draining for the recipient, she was saying. So this is from her experience from doing this other model. Yep. So she was thrilled to be learning Immanuel Approach. And the whole thing about doing this at Urbana, sitting down for 50 minutes with dear Lord Jesus, oh my gosh, amazing, with hundreds and hundreds of college students. And we didn't have to take them through 3 hours of horrible traumatic memories. I mean, how could there be anything better than just sitting down with someone and helping them encounter Jesus?
And when you start with a positive memory, and connect with Jesus, so it's a very gentle on-ramp. And again, it's a safety net is to be able to come back to it if you get in trouble. And then another thing, which is different, as soon as you get to anything painful, the first thing you do is help them connect with Jesus inside the painful place.
Yes.
And I've been doing various forms of emotional healing ministry, studying them or using them since the 70s. I mean, my dad was using them as a LCSW when I was a teenager in our church. Our church was in the Charismatic Renewal. So I've been exposed to Agnes. I mean, and Charlotte's grandparents actually knew and worked with Agnes Sanford.
Oh my gosh.
We have a whole folder of handwritten letters from Agnes Sanford that were all from back and forth from Grandma and Grandpa Stringham. So we were deeply exposed to Agnes Sanford and Francis McNutt and Toronto and Vineyard and I mean I've been very involved in all the previous iterations, and God bless. I mean some of those earlier versions of healing changed mine and Charles' lives. But the start at a good place and be able to go back there if you get in trouble, and then the first thing you do when you get inside a painful place is to connect with Jesus, as opposed to we go to a painful memory, we rummage around in there for 30 or 45 minutes, identifying the lie, getting things put together. And then after being in a bad place for 30, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, then you say, okay, Jesus, can you please come with truth? Or can you come with healing? Those methods all work, but they're exhausting and they're painful. And an analogy is for exposure therapy for phobias and for like obsessive compulsive disorder, where like the person just forces themselves to be exposed to the trigger. They set themselves on fire, and then they kind of prove to themselves that they don't die. That's a real short summary, but that's kind of the core of it. And you have tools to help them, like, okay, so now you're in the elevator, you're panicking, you think you're going to die, you're having a horrible experience. And I'm going to be here with you, and we're going to use breathing techniques, whatever. And eventually you calm down and prove to yourself, oh, I didn't die after all. And you do that over and over again. And if you do that repeatedly and regularly for the rest of your life, it works. But 50% of the people who try it drop out because it's just so dang hard and miserable. And that's like dentistry without Novocaine still works. I mean, it's all the same.
Who wants? I think you just triggered somebody, Doctor. I'm just kidding. This is a great analogy, though.
No, it is, and every piece of the rest of the medical science is the same. You can drill out the decay. You can feel. I mean, every other aspect of the procedure is exactly the same, just with or without Novocaine. And part of the deal is, before they had relatively painless dentistry, most people would put it off until it was too late and it was rotted and it's in the root canal, and then they had to take the whole tooth, yank the whole tooth out. And the fact that it's so much gentler and so much easier, the on-ramp is so gentle. And that, I mean, you've heard the same thing. I have lost count of how many people have said, oh, I've tried this, and fill in the blank of 5 other things. And secular therapies and EMDR and all kinds of other stuff. And the Immanuel Approach is just so much gentler. And it's just so much less painful, and it's so much less exhausting. So part of the reality is you got to have people actually do it. And if you can't get your spouse or your friend or your child or your colleague or your client to do it because it's so exhausting and so painful and they dread it, and the only time they do it is when their house is on fire and they're in utter crisis, I mean, that's better than nothing. But having a tool with just a couple extra pieces of brain science, thank you, Jim and Karl, so many more people are willing to do it so much more quickly and so much more regularly because it's so much gentler. That's a big deal.
I wish we had really good language to help people know how much transformation can come to their everyday lives. Like, I remember you said to us like a year ago, when we were really ramping up training, and you're like, you guys should have people banging down your door to come bring this training, because we know the benefit. We've seen it. We've watched what Jesus does. We've been part of this environment. I mean, Melinda and I about 4 or 5 years now, and you for many, many more. Mm-hmm. We've got to find language to help people understand the benefit of this. Like, we want to be on the road training once a month minimum. Like, we are ready. We want to come to you. We will bring this. It will change your life, but we don't know how to communicate. I mean, I was thinking that today, it's like, these are extraordinary tools that you can put in the hands of an ordinary person.
And it's not just for inner healing. That's what we have to stress, because that, for me, honestly, it's so and obviously this is why you said the book for emotional, like for healing and for life. And that is what is hard to get across. And it's why we probably have primarily had in our trainings women 55 and over. Not that I don't love them. I do, but we had this last training, the first time we had half men, and we had a table full of under 30s, which was incredible. And we talked to them about that and asked them what that could look like, because it's not about just, we got to look at all these traumas. Because I think a lot of people don't even think, well, first of all, I don't even have anything to deal with. Fine, if that's what you think. Totally fine. But do you want your inner life, your spiritual life, your emotional life to be richer and fuller? And that's what Kathy's saying, is finding words to describe what this is. Because honestly, our trainings, the way we do it, is way more, especially even just the level 1, is way more than just trauma healing, because we don't even go into that in the day and a half. People really want that. They're like, I want to go to the juicy stuff. It's like, well, have you even experienced this interactive, tangible, living presence of Jesus in your everyday life? Well, and honestly, Dr. Karl, I feel like this is how to hear God's voice 101. This is also how I've been describing it. There's countless books on it. I'm like, it doesn't take reading 20 books.
And I mean, just the brain science piece there, the piece about our brains work better in community. I mean, God really has designed our brains to work better in community. And all the other techniques are close to 100%. I mean, I've been, I've been a Christian since I can remember. I mean, consciously, at 3 years old, my first conscious memories, I already can remember clearly thinking, I want to know and do God's will. So I've been a Christian for 60 years. And I did decades. I mean, I did 40 years of other techniques for listening to God that did not include doing it with a facilitator, where you notice what comes into your awareness and then just get words and describe it, even if it's subtle or doesn't make sense or doesn't feel important. And that piece right there, there's all this subtle stuff that you miss otherwise. And that's just straight brain science. Your brain has been designed to work best in community. And if you use other techniques, journaling, there's all kinds of other techniques that work somewhat. But you just add the part about doing it with another person so that you describe what's coming to you to the other person. And that pulls it through the front of your brain on both sides. And there's all this subtle stuff that you otherwise miss. If you do this, you don't. And I've done that experiment hundreds of times. And it's for myself and for others. And it's so clear to me. I do these techniques. I do Immanuel by myself. I do other listening tools by myself. I tried other listening tools for decades. I mean, for 40 plus years. And when I add a facilitator and do listening in the context of Immanuel, a whole new thing happens. And I have done that experiment over and over again. I've spent a couple of weeks praying for guidance, listening on a specific issue. And then I'll have a session with Charlotte where she's facilitating and say, okay, ask about the same thing. And 3 times as much clear, tangible, usable guidance comes in 1 hour of Immanuel with a person than in the last 3 weeks of just listening on my own.
Yeah.
And I've done that, and it happens that way over and over and over again. And I have seen that happen for others, and other people describe that. I mean, that's.
We have had the privilege of training people who are already in the counseling field, therapists, counseling, traditional therapy. And we've had the privilege of some of them coming in, and then also their response to what they're learning. Like we've had, I can't remember what training it was at, but we had somebody who's trained professional therapist who just incorporated, it was Atlanta, I think, incorporated even just the appreciation connection with Jesus safety net piece. Yeah. And it's transformed our whole practice. So we've got to find language for the people who are already in the helping fields to help them understand that what you're doing is all well and wonderful, and it's also benefiting people. And what if you could speed up and really make that more efficient with that connection at the beginning in appreciation and gratitude with Jesus?
What if you could make it more efficient?
Yes.
What if you could make it gentler?
Right.
And what if you could make it more predictably, consistently effective?
See, that's the piece. It's consistently, predictably effective.
And I
that's the piece.
Yeah. And I want to, Brene Brown doesn't know you yet, Dr. Karl, but she confirms. And I read this quote because back to our brains work best in community and Atlas of the Heart. She says, language speeds and strengthens connections in the brain when we are processing sensory information. Describe whatever is coming into your awareness. Newer research shows that when our access to emotional language is blocked, our ability to interpret incoming emotional information is significantly diminished. Likewise, having the correct words to describe specific emotions makes us better able to identify those emotions in others, as well as to recognize and manage the emotional experiences when we feel them ourselves. Research shows that the process of labeling emotional experience is related to greater emotion regulation and psychosocial well-being. And I read that because you're talking about our brains working best in community and how it is so vital because people are like, well, do I have to say this aloud? And what you're talking about, the subtleness, and I've explained your example of someone seeing Jesus as a baby, and I've heard even just like, oh, I just see a orange glowing orb, and they may not say anything because they think, well, certainly that wouldn't be God. But describe, like you're saying, and that is when the community piece is so beautiful, and we're not meant to do this alone. It's confirmation. So I use Brene Brown to confirm. I'm like, listen, we have a PhD sociologist and a MD, which you are going to be world renowned, MD psychiatrist. There's something about this. And I feel like just the science is backing up. But back to what Kathy was saying and back to what we were saying a few minutes ago, why can't we, our training we had in Montana last year, we had people saying, why are 150 people aren't here? And again, how do we describe the importance of this and even remove, I don't even want to say it is inner healing, but how can we make it broader that everybody?
one item on the buffet is inner healing.
Mm.
But when you have the interactive connection with Jesus, yes, you can do spiritual direction. You can do just, Lord, can you look at this? I've been trying to discern how to be a good steward of the Immanuel Approach for the world. Can you look at that with me? Kathy, I'm trying to wrestle with how do I do the administration and not have it steal my joy?
Right.
Can you look at that with Kathy?
Yeah.
Just spending time with Jesus and just enjoying being with Jesus. Just receiving comfort. Did I tell you that a young man in our church drowned on Good Friday?
Yeah, the other day in the mentoring.
Yeah, I think you did
group.
mention that.
Mm-hmm.
There's one where there's lots of people involved who I'm sure are being traumatized by it, and they'll get healing later. But so here's one. For me, the first couple of days were just disorienting. I mean, it's hard to think straight. I mean, this is somebody that was in my Sunday school classes. But like day 3 of just, I mean, it was devastating. It was disorienting. I kept kind of thinking, this is just all a big mistake. It has to be, we'll get a phone call and it was a tremendous misunderstanding. You know, he just floated around the end of the rock formation. He's fine. I mean, and maybe in the middle of day 3, I realized I just need to talk to Jesus about this. So I used the Immanuel tools to get a tangible, interactive connection with the living presence of Jesus. And for, I don't know, a half an hour, I just got words for whatever was in my heart and just talked directly to Jesus. Everything from just like, damn, Lord, this is just, I mean, like, oh gosh, this is just so horrible, Jesus. This is so, probably maybe 5 minutes, I was just like, ow, 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 ow. This hurts so bad. Ow, 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 ow. And I could feel the truth that Jesus was with me and he heard me and he understood me. He was attuned to me. And that's one of comforting when you're in suffering, when you're actually in the middle of suffering. If you connect with Jesus and just share your heart with him and receive his attunement, like actually you don't get traumatized. I mean, it still hurts like hell, but your circuits stay on. You're not alone. You feel somebody with you who loves you, who's attuning to you, and you get through that. It's profoundly comforting. I mean, it's words I share with somebody else. Actually, I did another podcast with Tony yesterday and talked about some of the same stuff. It was clean. There was no dirt in the wound. It still was deeply, painfully sad, but it wasn't bitter or angry. There wasn't confusion. There wasn't hopelessness. It just felt profoundly clean. There was no dirt in the wound.
Wow.
And it feels like from the first week, and I've been doing it ever since then. It's 4 weeks ago, whatever. Whenever I have time and I'm feeling the pain about it, I just kind of connect with Jesus and just talk directly to him about it. And that's one. It's if for whatever reason you get traumatized, okay, a month later, a year later, 10 years later, you can get healing. But also, right in the middle of suffering, you can receive comfort from Jesus. So like it's receiving guidance, it's receiving comfort, just enjoying being with Jesus, doing spiritual direction with Jesus, getting healing for trauma with Jesus. There's a whole buffet. Oh, interceding. That's another one. You get a connection with Jesus, and then you intercession, what it looks like is you just talk directly to Jesus. Hey, Lord, this is so heavy on my heart. I'm asking you, can you heal my cousin? Just let's see what I'm trying. It was in, wait a minute. Was it in the one the session we were in together just last week where Jesus was praying for the guy for healing?
Yes.
That's where it's like, I can't wait to follow up on that. That's like, okay, so what if you get an Immanuel, use Immanuel tools, get a connection, say, Jesus, could you pray for me for this? And the intercession is you get a connection, you talk to Jesus. Jesus, I'm asking, my colleagues, Kathy and Melinda, they're doing a seminar this weekend. Can you bless them? I'm asking you for your blessings. I'm releasing your blessings. You actually talk directly to Jesus for intercession as opposed to just kind of sending mail into the ether. All of these things are so cool. So here, one of my thoughts is, I'm in connection with so many different people around the world doing ministry of different kinds. I get emails every day from somebody claiming to have the most, saying all the things that I feel are true about the Immanuel Approach. About this is amazing. You've never seen this before. This is like there's hundreds of people out there making huge claims that basically whatever they've got, it's the answer. And if you just do it, everything will be okay. Now, I've actually done most of the things that are being described. And my painfully honest thought is like, well, my experience is that thing you're talking about is valuable. I think it's about a quarter. My actual experience is about a quarter of what you're describing. And so part of it is we're in an ecosystem where there's 100 people all claiming, saying the same kind of things that we say about the Immanuel Approach. And it's not until people try it and then they'll say, oh my gosh, I tried those 10 other things that all said this and they sort of worked. But oh my gosh, this is more effective. This is gentler. I experienced the presence of Jesus in a new way. So to me, that's one of the challenges is what do you do when there's 100 other voices all yelling that they have the answer, which is just, it makes it hard to spread like by advertisement.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been sharing and inviting and challenging is people do it, manifest fruit, and share about it. Talk about your experiences. And if you have triggers that cause you to be, if you feel hesitant to share with others about your Immanuel experiences, work on that. That's a trigger because it's biblical. It's so clear. Tell people about what God has done for you. And there are so many people who have subtle triggers that make that hinder them from sharing about their own experience. So theirs was like, hey, people, if you feel hesitance about sharing your experience with others, go get that. That's about something that comes from something. That's a trigger. Get that out of the way because it's not only biblical. And again, like all over the Bible where God does something, he says, okay, and make a pile of rocks here so that every time you see them, you'll remember what I did for you. And this hesitance to talk about, it's too personal. It is profound. It is vulnerable. Okay. And get rid of the triggers about sharing something special when you were 12 years old in your Boy Scout troop and they all laughed at you. Okay. Go get that trigger because there are some people who have gotten rid of those triggers and they share about their Immanuel experiences all over the place. Just talked to somebody in the last couple of weeks, sharing with agnostic and atheist colleagues, just humbly, kind of openly, I'm doing this thing with prayer and I'm having this interesting experience with kind of the tangible presence of Jesus and just sharing, no argument, not just sharing openly, humbly about her own personal experience. And these two senior colleagues with more degrees, older, atheist and agnostic, were like, wow, like, we want to say more about that. Can we spend more time together? Basically, like we feel good when we're around you, and intellectually we don't quite know what to do with what you're saying, but our hearts burn within us when it's like, oh my goodness, can we get together again and hear more about this? And that crazy story you've heard me tell about Panama, where Dr. John, my friend, this person he started doing Immanuel with, and then the next week, somebody comes in and, anybody who comes in for prayer, he asks them, why are you here? Oh, well, Kathy sent me. And then the next week, somebody else, Kathy sent me. The next week, somebody else, Kathy sent me. Kathy sent me. And after 10 of those, he asked Kathy, what's the deal? And she says, I'm walking on the streets of Panama City and complete strangers walk up to me and say, who are you? What do you have? And how can I get some? And she says, go to the basement of this church on Saturday morning and do this prayer with Dr. John, and you'll talk to Jesus.
Wow.
So if people do their work and they manifest the fruit, and people can sense the tangible abiding presence of Jesus walking beside them, and you're willing and you're comfortable sharing about it. Somebody asks you, and you don't just mumble and you say, "Oh yeah, the most coolest thing in the world happened to me." So that one of my hopes is that will start to grow, and the way exponentially. I mean, my hope is that it'll be exponential as it multiplies, and at some point that'll explode. So that's one of my dreams, my hopes, my desires, and part of that work is, I don't have an advertising firm.
Yeah.
And also the ecosystem is saturated.
Yeah.
With people all claiming. I mean, honestly, God, I mean, every day I get an email from somebody doing some program, EMDR, some kind of therapy, some kind of ministry, claiming, come to my seminar, it'll change your life. And people get that in their inbox every single day.
Yeah.
How do they know?
Yeah. Yeah. When everything went virtual with the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, everybody kind of was forced into that online space. And we kind of caught the leading edge of that wave with a couple of things that we did early on. But now, like, we've done some things more recently that just, I mean, how do you get that word out when it is complete? It's a red ocean. It is absolutely bloody with fish been caught, you've got to find the blue ocean, that whole blue ocean mentality of what isn't being done right now. And, I was just thinking, you're talking about like getting people to share their experience, that word of mouth thing. We get testimonies. Melinda will film them. I mean, maybe we just need to make reels out of those and make them a little bit more. And everybody's attention span is so microscopic now because they're just scroll. So, the brain has been trained for pop in, pop out really fast. And if it doesn't catch your attention really, really quickly, why bother? So there's a lot of challenges that we have. It's like we're going back to as much as technology has helped us, it is also becoming a hindrance because you're lost in a sea of noise. Sea
of noise. That's actually the right term, is the noise.
Yes.
There's so much signal that you can't find. I mean, there's so much noise signal that it's very hard to find what you're actually looking for. And another way, just a data point there is, so now anybody can publish, publishing software like InDesign, but also with the internet and websites, anybody can write something, put it on a website, put it on a podcast, put it on a YouTube, put it whatever. So it's in some ways it's wonderful. There's not a gatekeeper. Like, I didn't have to fight for 10 years to get some publisher to agree to publish a book about the living presence of Jesus, when some people would think you're crazy. I could just do it myself. Yay. But when a million other people are also self-publishing, what you have is a completely saturated environment,
right?
Where there's literally millions, not hundreds, millions of blogs and articles and essays and websites and YouTube channels and podcasts. So again, one of my hopes is the word of mouth piece, where your friend, your sister, not to mention I would love to see a bunch more of the one in Panama. If that becomes common, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
Where the fruit is so crazy tangible and visible that complete strangers stop you in the street. That's cool. But more common is, I've had this happen. Friends who I've known since I was 5 years old. One person, one close friend that I've known for my entire life. And a few years ago, Charlotte and I had dinner with this person. He was in town for a conference in Chicago. And after we got done with the evening, he said, "Karl, I've known you your whole life. I still am the way you used to be. And I want to be the way you are now." He said, "You've been telling me about this thing you've been doing for years, and I've just been too busy to really but you've got my attention now. I can see you have changed. And whatever you've got, I want it." Now, when that that happens, it's not something you can put on a billboard very easily, or on like the marketing people don't know how to do that as far as just filming or billboards or websites, whatever. But my hope is that will start to grow. And when your sister, who has known you forever, sees transformation in your life, and then especially when she's in pain, you'll get the phone call and say, Kathy, I know you've been telling me about this, but I've kind of been busy. I haven't really been listening, but I can see the fruit in your life. And I need it now. Can you do that thing with me?
Well, and Dr. Karl, even without the Jesus piece, and because it's been on my mind as we're talking that, and please hear us, this is not an hour-long commercial for Immanuel. Well, yes, it is. Because that's the thing. It's like, I said, I've given my life to this. And last week when we were in Salt Lake City, or 2 weeks ago, our friend Sandy, who came along, she's like, you're on fire. And I can tell you're created for this. And it's like, that is true. I am created to train, teach, and equip, specifically Immanuel Approach. But thinking about last weekend with these under 30s and guys that were talking about just the share, because I have them like you do in your trainings, or used to do when you did live trainings, but of the triads, of just sharing their appreciation story. And the people that were sharing and what they experienced was remarkable. And that's just the appreciation piece, because even people going, well, I'm not a Christian, I don't know where Jesus was, even before that. And I said, if all you guys got from this weekend was practicing appreciation with someone, and look how it makes you feel. In fact, they started interacting with each other going, how does your body feel before and after? How are your emotions? Like 5 minutes. And these younger guys are like, I didn't know. Yeah. He's like, it like made it fuller when I described it. And when, cause I do the group leading them in that, and then they practice with each other, but they were like, it made it so much fuller, broader, richer, more colorful, when not only I revisited it, spent time experiencing all my senses, but then described it. And then other people were in tears just listening to the other person's appreciation story. I mean, come on. And that's not even doing any quote unquote healing work. That's just and everyone is feeling like high,
It's the appreciation work, Melinda, in community.
Yes.
Just being grateful on your own. That's attitude of gratitude, learning how to be appreciative, learning the habit of thinking about a positive memory. That actually works. And it just doubles in intensity when you do it in community.
Right. I mean, sharing, they all felt good. They're crying, listening to the other person's story. They're like, I feel better 2 minutes later after just hearing Mary share her appreciation. You're like, this is magic.
You can watch the momentum build as the group goes around. Each person, the momentum builds. And the brain science about when I share mine out loud with a person, it actually affects this path in the brain, and it feels more powerful for me. And I've watched this where where I do it, I have pairs or triads where they right away share with each other, so it's harder to spot. But I've been in places where someone else is leading, and they'll have a part of the exercise where everybody does it in their own head, and then 20 minutes later, they say, okay, now share with each other what happened. And you can watch the first half, and I've walked around the room and done this. I mean, I'm always in science mode. And you can see people like, a little bit of emotion, maybe a little tear. I mean, they're going to positive memories, and even the second half connecting with Jesus. And it's happening, and everybody is at a 2 or 3 intensity. And then you go and you watch the same thing, all the same people, the same groups. And when they share their experience with the group, the exact same thing that they did in their own head 20 minutes earlier, they share it with the group, and the intensity is right there in front of you. The intensity goes from a 2 or 3 to a 5 or an 8. You can do that experiment if you want to.
We watched it. It happened in front of our eyes and that was one of the things I was really intentional. Melinda does the bulk of the content, but I lead the demos and I handle the questions and responses and Q&A stuff and do the debriefing after an event, like after they spend their triad time or after I've led some sort of a demo. And one of the things that I was drilling, I just felt really compelled because of the mentoring with you. I just quizzed them. I would say that our brains are designed to work best in community, just so that they really understood, because they were making comments about things about their experience in their triad with just that appreciation piece that they were surprised by. And the answer for why that happened is because your brain is designed to work best in community.
Which, I mean, that's profound and biblical. I mean, that just,
yeah,
you could do a whole sermon.
Yep.
Actually, I can do 3. There's more than one reason. I mean, the whole thing about being able to recognize the importance and feel the importance of recognizing a meaning, that works better in community.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 or 4 other things too. I can do 3 or 4 sermons on all the ways your brain is designed to work best in community. That's a profound aspect of who God has created us to be. And if you're aware of that and you cooperate with it, everything works better. Oh my gosh, what do you know? Melinda, you said, like, this isn't just an hour-long commercial about Immanuel. Oh, yes, it is. Well, actually, so here's Charlotte, before we were together, before we got married 32 years ago, she had a block of her early adulthood. She worked in a marketing firm. And I kind of grew up with the idea that marketing is just a bunch of dirt balls trying to sell crap to people who don't need it or want it.
Good.
for more money than it's worth.
There you go.
Dirt balls trying to sell crap to people who don't want it or need it for more money than it's worth.
But they do it really well.
And they spend billions of dollars learning how to manipulate psychological principles to sell crap to people who don't need it or want it for more than it's worth. And Charlotte, God bless her, correctly helped me see the legitimate part of marketing is you need something you're a mother with a child who's sick, who has pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia, and that child has like a 50% chance of dying. I mean, before we had antibiotics, millions and millions of people died of pneumonia. And it was, old people. I mean, that was one of the most common reasons old people finally died, is they got pneumonia. But there was some kinds of bacterial pneumonia could get young, healthy people. So you get a young, strong, 28-year-old father of 3 young children, and he would get pneumonia and be dead in 10 days. That's a big deal. So you got a family with a child or a parent with pneumonia, and I have penicillin. Okay, is it a bad thing for me to be trying to find you and tell you, hey, and not just snake oil, but I've worked long and hard to develop, and here's the science. I'm bringing you actual facts about reality. I mean, data that you can verify that will convince you. Oh my goodness, look where that came from. Look at the experiments he's done, and look at that. The bacteria that are growing in my lungs, you can put them on that plate, and you drop penicillin on it, and they all die. And you can watch it. Oh my gosh, can I please have some? Now, that's a win-win deal.
Yeah.
I've spent years developing something, invested my money and my time and my energy to develop something, and you actually need it and want it. And appropriate marketing is helping us find each other. So to me, that's the God-given place for sharing truth about something that's good. I mean, that, like Jesus said, go and tell the world. This is the good news. Go and tell the world. And it feels like, new brain science that can help people consistently connect with the tangible, living, interactive, personal, friendship, abiding presence of Jesus. That's like, good news 2.0. I mean, that's a big part of the good news now combined with modern brain science. And to help people discover that, to me, that's a gift, which nobody ever yet has told me, why did you waste my time convincing me to try Immanuel? Everybody who actually tries it, they say, oh my goodness, thank you for helping me find this. So if you exaggerate, bad on you. If you make stuff up, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do marketing that's not clean. But if you're just sharing the truth and you can back it up, and it's all stuff you can look at together, and this data and this logic that you can walk a person through, and they say, oh my goodness, that makes sense. you show them that and they try it and they say, wow, that's good news. I mean, like the young guy, I don't know if you guys saw the most recent newsletter, the non-believer in my office who tried it. And first of all, he got dramatic relief. He was thrilled to have found this thing that actually worked. He tried all this other stuff. He literally said when he came to his first appointment, I'm going to shoot myself in the head if this doesn't work. I mean, if you can't help me, I've tried everything. And some friends, I can't remember if it was his friends or his parents or somebody knew well, I said, they convinced me to come see you. If you can't help me, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. And he wasn't joking. So he did not complain that I convinced him to try Immanuel. He was like, wow, he was thrilled to be so much better with his depression and anxiety. And then he says, is this what you Christians do? What do you mean? This thing about talking to Jesus like this? It's like, well, yeah, that is actually supposed to be the most important part of Christianity. Said, oh my gosh, this was so poignant. He was like, so if I be a Christian, can I keep doing this?
Yeah, come on.
It's like, so I said, yeah. Well, how do you do that? How do I be a Christian? Like, oh my gosh.
Wow. Immanuel evangelism.
Well,
yeah.
It was like, yes, Immanuel being the presence of Jesus, like they meet the living presence of Jesus and there's no evangelism required.
There's no hard sell needed, when you experience that.
There's no sell needed.
Yeah.
That's like someone who comes to they say, I found this, my friend has it, I want one, can you sell it to me? I mean, you just have to fill the order.
Yeah.
All you're doing is filling the order. It's like, it's already sold.
Yeah.
They're just trying to find, where can I get one of these? And like, oh, I can help you with that. Unbelievable.
So we know it's amazing, and we want you guys to come back for part 2. Please come back for part 2. He's going to start talking about all of what's going on with InterVarsity and how the Immanuel Approach is now part of their onboarding protocol for all of their staff. And he's talking about even the international impact of this. And we're so grateful to be able to be partnering with him in that. We're going to be down in Orlando over New Year's to be ministering to some of the staff. So very excited what God's doing. And this is just our call into greater intimacy with Jesus, and we invite you into it, and here we go. So have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with your friends.
And please stay tuned for more great content coming your way.